I'm Slavie, born in Ukraine. This is my story and my fight. Ukraine is battling a genocidal invader, fighting for freedom, truth, and justice. Every battle fought strengthens our will to rise. On my channel, Yurochenko, I fight Russian propaganda and stand with my country until victory. Stand with me. Stand with Ukraine. Subscribe to Yurochenko. Together, we'll see Ukraine triumph.
Hey everyone, I'm Slavie and welcome to channel Yurochenko. If you're new here, a big thank you for tuning in and supporting Ukraine. Today's episode is packed with critical updates about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and trust me, you won't want to miss a second. Stick around until the end. This episode, I'm fired up and I'm not holding back. Today's episode is absolutely jam-packed with critical updates, and you cannot afford to miss this. We're diving deep into President Zelensky's bold victory plan, a roadmap to end the war and secure Ukraine's future by next year. But that's not all. We'll also break down a shocking new development. North Korea. North Korea is sending troops to help Russia in its genocidal invasion of Ukraine. And yes, it gets even darker. Ukrainian prisoners of war are enduring unspeakable horrors at the hands of Russian forces. But here's where it really heats up. Zelenskyy has delivered an ultimatum to the West. In a blunt warning to leaders, including former President Trump, Zelenskyy said it's either NATO or nukes. Ukraine cannot and will not be left defenseless. And the propaganda war is raging too. We'll expose the Russian-paid public figures, Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson, surprise, surprise, who have been working to push disinformation and destabilize democracies in the West. I've been looking forward to doing this episode so much. Canada, thank you so much for taking them down, and we've got all the details. This isn't just a fight for Ukraine, it's a fight for future of freedom, democracy, and truth itself. So hit that like button, share this video far and wide, and subscribe. You won't want to miss a single second of this. Let's get into it. Let's start with biggest news of the week, President Zelenskyy's victory plan. On October 16th, Zelenskyy laid out a strategic roadmap before Ukraine's parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, aiming to end the war by 2025. This plan? It's bold, it's ambitious, it's most importantly, it's achievable, but only with the continued support of Ukraine's allies and NATO.
Терміновість плану перемоги саме зараз. Це пункти, більшість яких розраховані детально в часі. Якщо почати рухатися цією ідеєю, з цим конкретним планом перемоги саме зараз, то може вдатися завершити війну не пізніше, ніж наступного року. Росія повинна програти у війні проти України. І це не заморозка, і це не торгівля територіями чи суверенітетом України. Ми повинні реалізувати план перемоги, щоб примусити Росію бути на саміті миру та бути готовою закінчити війну.
The plan revolves around 5 key areas: geopolitical, military, economic, and security measures, and even includes some classified Steps for obvious reasons, but make no mistake, this is not just a vision. It's a blueprint for victory. Number 1. NATO membership. Zelenskyy is clear Ukraine's future lies with NATO. NATO membership isn't about today, it's about securing a long-term, democratic future for Ukraine. 2. Defense. Ukraine's defense must not only hold the line but push the war into Russian territory, forcing the Kremlin to reckon with the consequences of their aggression. 3. Deterrence. Ukraine is calling for a non-nuclear strategic deterrence package to ensure Russia can even again pose a military threat. The message? Diplomacy, or the collapse of Russia's war machine.
We propose placing on Ukrainian land a deterrence package that would either force Russia to participate in real peace negotiations or allow for the destruction of their military targets. It's the peace through threats approach for this point. And it's about the appropriate missile package. And we have provided all the details to our partners who can make this happen. These are the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, and of course, we want to share with all the leaders who is ready to support in this case. Putin should respect our strengths, not have the free world tremble at his threats. And we can use the deterrence package only if Russia does not stop the war.
4. Strategic resources. Ukraine's vast natural resources are a global treasure, either strengthening democracy or feeding authoritarian regimes. Take your pick.
Unfortunately, stability is becoming a rare resource. So every source of security for people, every source of true peace in international relations is precious. No one in Europe has to be reminded how important stability is for the Balkans, just as the situation in Eastern Europe. What happens in the Balkans defines whether Europe is suffering from war. That's why Ukraine's resistance to Russian invasion is a condition for your stability. If Russia had succeeded in subjugating our country and threatening all of Eastern Europe, there's no doubt that the next region Moscow would use to destabilize Europe would be the Baltics or Balkans. So we share a common interest in ensuring that Russia lacks the power to continue its aggression or interfere in the lives of other nations.
Zelenskyy's plan proposes joint protection of these resources with allies like the US. 5. Post-war. After the war, Ukraine's battle-hardened troops could replace US military contingents in Europe, making Ukraine an integral part of NATO's future force. Zelenskyy's message is clear. Victory is within reach, but only if our allies stay the course. Every bit of support counts. With US elections looming, we can't afford to let this slip. The fight for Ukraine is the fight for global freedom. In recent weeks, Zelenskyy has been a man on a mission, meeting with leaders like President Biden, Trump, Kamala Harris, and key European heads of state to rally support for his victory plan. And let me tell you, he's not pulling any punches. One of the most revealing responses came from NATO's incoming chief, Mark Rutte, who confidently declared that Ukraine will become the 33rd or maybe 34th NATO member. I mean, it seems like Rutte's making big promises and working on his counting skills.
What we have said in Washington, and of course I will constantly repeat the language, but I think it was significant, the irreversible path to NATO membership. So that means that, yes, in the future NATO will have as a 32 or 34th member, we will have Ukraine. At the moment, it seems that it will be Ukraine as number 33, but maybe somebody else pops in front of him. But Ukraine will be a member of NATO in the future. That is what we decided in Washington. So the question is then about the timeline.
Ukraine doesn't have time. Ukraine is fighting a genocidal war against nuclear powers with slow dripping and dwindling aid. Promises for future NATO membership won't stop the bombs raining down on Ukrainian cities today. Rute's message might sound optimistic, but Ukraine is in a fight for its very existence, and we cannot afford to wait for a bureaucratic delays.
A lot of people share a lot of their ideas, analytics, and etc. Thanks them very much. But what is in our plan? Our plan is to strengthen Ukraine, to be strong and be ready to diplomacy, anything, to be very strong. And it's great, I think, that this plan doesn't depend on Russian will, only on the will of our partners. And I think this gives opportunity to make this plan real.
And there's more happening on the international front. The NATO Secretary General just joined a critical meeting of G7 defense ministers in Naples, where global defense strategies were discussed. It's clear that the stakes are rising and NATO's involvement in Ukraine's defense is being taken seriously. But is it happening fast enough? Ukraine doesn't need words, it needs action. It needs it now. Here's where it gets real. Earlier this month, in a private meeting with Trump and different meetings with European leaders, Zelenskyy reportedly gave them a chilling ultimatum, as it's been uncovered recently. Either Ukraine joins NATO, or we'll have to build nuclear weapons to defend ourselves. Think about that. Zelenskyy isn't bluffing. He's issuing a warning. Ukraine needs solid security guarantees, and if NATO won't step up, Ukraine must find another way. This isn't a game. Zelenskyy is sounding the alarm. It's NATO or nuclear. Ukraine has the capability to build nuclear weapons because we were once key producer of them for the Soviet Union. But here's the real kicker. Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal in 1994 under the Budapest Memorandum in exchange for security assurances from the US, the UK, and Russia. These countries promised to protect Ukraine's sovereignty in exchange for disarmament.
If Russia violated this agreement, even though it was itself a guarantor of the document, how can we trust this agreement? And how can we trust all the partners who guaranteed the protection of our territorial integrity and sovereignty? The answer is very simple. Does it work? No, this document does not work. Do other major agreements with Russia work? No, these were not just agreements between Ukraine and Russia, but also between Ukraine and all its partners. In general, all these agreements have failed. Which of these major countries, all the nuclear powers, were affected? All of them? No, only Ukraine. Who gave away nuclear weapons? All of them? No, only one. Who? Ukraine. Who is at war today? Ukraine. So it turns out that, and in a conversation with Donald Trump, I told him this is how it works out. What is the solution? Either Ukraine will have nuclear weapons, which would provide us with defense, or we should have some kind of alliance. Besides NATO, we do not know of any effective alliances today. NATO countries are not at war today. NATO members are not at war. In NATO countries, people are all alive. Thank God. And that is why we choose NATO, not nuclear weapons. We are choosing NATO.
And what did we get in return? A brutal invasion by Russia, and so far, extremely weak support from those same countries who pledged to protect us. This isn't just a betrayal of Ukraine, it's a betrayal of international agreements and the very foundations of global security. Without the US's backing and NATO membership, Ukraine is left vulnerable. Zelenskyy's warning couldn't be clearer. If NATO doesn't step up, Ukraine may have no choice but to rebuild its nuclear capabilities to defend itself. The world's democratic future hinges on this moment, and with US elections around the corner, it's critical that we don't lose our focus. The decisions made now will decide whether Ukraine stands strong or is left isolated, fighting alone for its survival. Just when we thought this war couldn't escalate further, we have new and terrifying development. North Korea. North Korea is now directly involved. Over 1,500 North Korean troops are already on Russian soil, with another 12,000 preparing to join them soon to fight against Ukraine. Think about that. One of the most repressive, isolated regimes in the world is now sending soldiers to help Russia. This isn't just about Russia anymore. This is a coalition of tyrants. With that enough said, there are now nearly 11,000 North Korean infantry troops training in eastern Russia to fight in Ukraine. They will be ready to fight in Ukraine on November 1st. The first cadre of 2,600 soldiers will go to Kursk.
Зараз ми маємо чіткі дані про те, що в Росію постачають і людей з Північної Кореї. І це вже не просто робітники для виробництв, але й військові. І ми чекаємо нормальну, чесну, сильну реакцію партнерів на це. Фактично, це вступ ще однієї держави у війну проти України. У всіх є можливість побачити докази і завдяки супутникам, і завдяки відео, яке вже приходить з Росії. Треба займатися цим, реагувати, протидіяти. І не можна давати злу вирости, якщо світ мовчатиме зараз, і якщо нам доведеться стикатися із солдатами з Північної Кореї на фронті так само постійно, як захищатись від шахедів, то це точно нікому у світі не піде на користь і лише подовжить цю війну. Війну, яка має бути завершена справедливо і якнайшвидше.
How is this not a red line for the US and NATO? North Korea's involvement is a massive escalation, but it doesn't stop there. Iran has been supplying Russia with drones and military support for months, providing critical technology that has been used to devastate Ukrainian infrastructure. And don't forget China. While Beijing claims neutrality, it continues to strengthen trade and economic ties with Russia, providing a lifeline to the Kremlin's war machine. This isn't just about Ukraine versus Russia anymore. It's Ukraine versus the axis of authoritarian regimes. North Korea, Iran, China, all of them are helping Russia wage its war. And what's the West doing? Watching from sidelines, debating aid packages, and reacting far too slowly while Ukraine stands alone on the front lines. Zelenskyy has been ringing the alarm bells just days ago. He warned NATO that this is no longer just a war between two nations. It's a global threat, a coordinated effort by some of the world's most dangerous regimes to dismantle democracy. He called for immediate action, and he's not exaggerating. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner even sent a letter to President Biden demanding that the U.S. responds now, before this conflict spirals completely out of control. This escalating involvement of North Korean troops, along with ongoing support from Iran and China, is a dangerous red line. It threatens the stability of the world, and the West cannot afford to stand by any longer. Let's be clear. This is an existential threat to global democracy. North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia are all aligning, and their battleground is Ukraine. If the West continues to hesitate, we risk allowing these authoritarian regimes to reshape the global order, and Ukraine will be the first domino to fall. This is not just Ukraine's fight anymore. It's a fight for freedom everywhere. The West must wake up. The West must wake up and take a decisive action now before it's too late. We cannot let these dictatorships win. Let's be clear, Ukraine's fight is not just for itself, it's for the survival of freedom and democracy around the world. Zelensky's victory plan gives us a path to end this war, but it requires global unity and unwavering resolve. The 5 steps are clear: NATO membership, strengthening defense, strategic deterrence, unlocking Ukraine's economic potential, and building a post-war security framework. But these steps can only succeed if the world continues to stand by Ukraine. Ukraine needs NATO, and NATO needs Ukraine. Zelensky's message couldn't be any more clear. Either Ukraine joins NATO or faces the grim reality of needing nuclear weapons to defend itself. The stakes are rising extremely fast. North Korea is now sending troops to support Russia's genocidal invasion, turning this war into a fight against a growing coalition of dictatorships. This isn't just Ukraine's fight anymore, it's a battle between freedom and tyranny. And the outcome will shape our future, all of us.
What keeps you going? Do you ever feel defeated?
I have a lot of power, but even feeling strong and have a lot of energy, it doesn't mean that we want to fight all our life, because the price is high, like I said, because the war takes the best of us, the best heroes, the best men, women, children. That's it. But we are not ready to give our freedom to this terrorist Putin. That's it. That's why we are fighting. That's it.
Let me remind you of what Garry Kasparov said. Ukraine has a lot of courage, but a few weapons. NATO has many weapons, but little courage. This quote rings louder than ever. Ukraine is showing unmatched bravery, standing up to nuclear powers and its brutal allies. But courage alone won't win this war. NATO must step up, not just with words, but with decisive action. Ukraine is fighting for the survival of democracy itself, and it cannot be left to do it alone. The upcoming US elections are the most important of our lives that will determine whether Ukraine gets the support it needs to achieve victory or is left to fight alone. We cannot let Russian propaganda and disinformation sway the outcome of this war. The truth is our strongest weapon. We must remain vigilant, stay informed, and keep Ukraine in the global conversation. This is a defining moment for Ukraine, for democracy, and for all of us. The future of freedom is on the line, and we must not falter. Thank you for watching, for supporting Ukraine, and for standing on the side of truth. Please, like this video, share, subscribe. If you'd like to support the production costs of these videos, check out the links in the description box below. And a very special thank you to Chris Johnson, The Contrast Films, for supporting the channel, and thank you to everyone that donated. God bless America, and Slava Ukraini!